Okay, we're going to look at EspressoRec and EspressoRec versus CIMA's Finest Fun Quiz. If you go to www.espressorec.co.uk and click this little link here, it'll download for you the quiz file. So if you just open that one up, it'll open up in Excel, enable editing, and then enable content. Now this little quiz is 4 questions. The first 2 questions are empty, and that's just because I'm trying to keep the file size down. So on the front sheet, if you click this button, it's a little loop that'll generate the question for you, the 2 other big questions. This is the big VLookup, and that's a large reconciliation, and we're going to do them now. This has got 200,000 rows in. Most of the data is the same. There's a few items that are different, and the trick is to do the reconciliation and do it that's very large at very high speed. So if you press Control E, you get into EspressoRec, and what we're going to do is paste in one set of data into the left hand side and the other set of data into the right hand side, and click the button, and EspressoRec will do the job for you. So to highlight the data, if you do Control Y in EspressoRec, make sure it jumps over any gaps. You make sure you always get the data in, and then we paste that in here, and then we take the data here, and we paste it over here, and there's a difference of that. And now what we do is we click the button, and EspressoRec will go away and do this for us. And it should take a few seconds. So while it's doing that for a few seconds, we're going to have a look at the website for 2 seconds. It has some. There's a trial download. You can click here, and there's some video tutorials which show you all the extra little tricks. There's there's partial recs. There's manual adjustments where you can control, I don't want that to reconcile against that. There's not equal items where somebody might say, oh, check 1, 2, 3, and then another reference might say check 1, 2, 3 rent, and it'll find those items for you. And again, it can also reconcile by totals as well. So let's hop back into the program for a few seconds to see how that's doing. On this sheet here, this is the question sheet. You put the first set of data. When the reconciliation is finished, the items that are unreconciled will turn up on this unreconciled sheet, and the items that do reconcile will turn up on this sheet, and there'll be a kind of a reconciliation number next to it, so you can see what matched to what and how EspressoRec did it. And also these left folios and right folios, folio being an old-fashioned accountancy term, if you leave it blank, these 2 items will use the row number, but you can use something else yourself. And here we have the unreconciled items, and there we have the reconciled items and the rec number that it matched to and the row number they came from. So that's the first question done. So now what we do is we go back into the second question. It's at VLookup. So once again, highlight the data, and if you do Control Y, you make sure all the data is caught for you. And then what we do is you go into EspressoRec's high-speed VLookup, and there we paste the lookup table here, and then we go back and we get what we want to be looked up here, and we paste that into EspressoRec, and we click this button. Now this is not worth doing if you have a small VLookup. This is only for those VLookups that take hours and hours and you have to copy paste values anyway. Essentially all VLookups only have a table with 2 columns in. The index, the first leftmost left-hand column, and when you say go across, oh, it's finished already. So you just paste in that second column that you're interested in, basically. The hash NA for the not found here, you can put that as blank here, and it'll come up as blank here, or you can type in not found or anything you want. You can control what happens when it can't find the item. And so it's done 100,000 rows in 200,000 rows in a few seconds, and we just copy paste that back into the answer, and is our answer. The Marks and Spencers use this, so to do their stock recs and. So let's go back into the question, the cash allocation number 3. EspressoRec has got this very clever feature whereby if somebody gives you a check for a certain amount and they don't tell you what it's made up of course the first thing to do is to try and find out what it is they did pay you, but in case you need it, you can come here, you can click this button, and it'll work through all the, it'll find out £123.45 in a few seconds. You can click next to find different variations of the same amount, and then you can do adjustments to say whether you want to start it with a lot of items or a small amount of items in your final count. And so that's that one done. The next one is the in the questions is it's question 4, the ragged delineation. The problem with this one is this: if you just do a delineation in Excel and go for comma, as you can see instantly here, there's too many commas, and the delineation is going to be a bit of a mess. And so EspressoRec has got a feature for that. Copy paste that into EspressoRec's delineation sheet, delineator. It's set up for a ragged delineation, a ragged right delineation, and this particular data, ragged right meaning all the extra columns, the extra commas are in the final column. This isn't the case here. So this is where this other button comes in to understand your data a bit better. What this does is it sorts the data by how many columns will be in the final answer, and you have 7s and 6s and 5s, and then you can decide yourself how many columns do you actually want is in the correct answer. EspressoRec has guessed for you 5, which looks like it is the right answer here, and the extra commas are happening in the address field, which looks like the second column there. So if we type in a 2 here, it doesn't default to it being the final column, and then you click the button. The comma you can pick yourself. Now clearly I've made a mistake here, and this is not quite right. It's actually the third column. No big problem, just re-click the button, put a 3 in, and that's now your delineated items. So that has taken EspressoRec a matter of 5 minutes to do those questions while I'm chatting. And the question is, how long can you take to do those questions without using EspressoRec or something like it? And so let's see some of the other tricks that EspressoRec can do. You've got some nice shortcuts. If you want to highlight a row to the far end, and imagine for a second there's lots of gaps and there's lots of columns, maybe thousands of columns, you could be all day moving across finding the next one. EspressoRec Control-G will just find it for you. But not only that, but if it's interested in several rows at the same time, a Control-G here will find the furthest column to the right of the whole data set you just picked. And similarly with Control-J, it'll hop down columns, and also if you highlight them, it'll hop down the columns you've just told it you're interested in. Control-Y works to highlight the whole range, not just a single column, and Control-Shift-Y will do the same thing for the columns going across. And in the very large worksheets we have nowadays, that's very, very useful. If you do Control-W for were monomically, it'll give you the full path of the workbook, which can take a few seconds using normal Excel methods. And if you do it a few times a day, that adds up to a few minutes saved constantly. These are some of the other tricks that EspressoRec does. I'll show you a few very quickly here. Control-Shift-I. If you do Control-Shift-I, notice how the pointer changes into switching Control-Shift-I on and off. It's a toggle button. When the pointer's on, you can take any range of data and just double click it, and it'll create an instant auto filter. And let's go for all the 2s as well. Let's go for all the AAs as well. And this helps you hop around auto filters very quickly. A right click will do a negative on a field, and Control-Shift-I will get rid of it again and make it as a negative, and as a double click on a positive, negative being a right click. And so that Control-Shift-I, and now it's off. Double clicking does nothing. So you have control whether it's on or off. I say that's on the Control-Shift-K. Imagine you had data like this, and you wanted to reconcile this. Well, what you do is, if you highlight the range and do Control-Shift-K, it'll turn it from a tabular data into a list, and this is primed and ready to go into EspressoRec. Let's go to EspressoRec for 2 seconds, and I'll close that down and restart it again. And we get our data. And paste that into EspressoRec. Actually, I'll do it here. It'll pick up the dates there as well. This folio now is not blank and it won't be used for a row number. This is the address of the original data in your tabular data set. And again, this one will do the same thing, even those gaps. As there are gaps, I'm going to use the EspressoRec trick of hopping across using Control G, and then with Control Y, catching all the data going downwards, so I'm not hopping over data for a few minutes. Get back into EspressoRec, paste the data. Oops, I don't want to do that, do I? Having highlighted it, I want to change it into a list. Control Shift K. Now I want to take this data and put it into EspressoRec, and you reconcile. Click that button to reconcile it. The unreconciled items will turn up here. Will actually give me the address E8 and Q10 where there's a difference. And so if I go back to my original thing, E8 is here and Q10 is here, and it's just a penny difference. And again, imagine there's thousands of rows and thousands of columns. EspressoRec will do that for you very nicely. And then in terms of multi-column reconciliations, if you had data like this and you wanted to reconcile it to data like this, EspressoRec allows you to highlight rows on the same row, give it an extra space to somewhere on the right. You can do Control Shift M, and it'll produce for you an instant concatenation formula. If you do Control C, highlight the data again, and now do Control J, it'll copy that, give you a range to paste that formula down, and now you can use this formula to do the VLookup back in, to do the reconciliation in EspressoRec. And similarly with this data, let's move it across a bit. If you highlight that, and use your Control key to highlight the rest separately, and again do Control M, it'll give you that. So now you can reconcile this singularly against that using EspressoRec. And so that's some of the tricks that EspressoRec will do. So that's what it does in a matter of minutes. So EspressoRec, have it a go. Give it a go.